What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with another video ranking players worldwide. Disclaimer, everybody's better than me. Well, not everybody. All the professional players are better than me at League of Legends. The goal of this video and this channel is to give information that we can try to use for betting purposes. So in this video, we're going to go through the best bot lanes, or maybe not the best bot lanes, but the bot lanes that I think will have the biggest impact on the leagues throughout the world, the four major leagues. So the LCS, LEC, LPL, and LCK. So, you know, you might think that a different duo deserves to be shouted out in this video. Go ahead and make a comment about it, and I'll probably respond to you because I respond to almost everything. So let's just get into it, and we're going to start off in the bot lane. So the most important bot lanes in the world, and this is in no particular order. I'm just going to talk about them. First up, we have Danny and Vulcan from EG. I think that Danny and Vulcan represent some of the best talent in North America at their respective roles, and in order for evil geniuses to reach the heights that I think that they will be able to, they're going to need to have good synergy in lane, and also Danny's going to have to be able to carry super hard late game. Vulcan's going to have to be good at engaging, good at roaming during the mid game to support Inspired, and these are all things that I expect them to do. That's why I'm so high on EG this year. Next up, we have Gen G. So we have Ruler and Lehens. Lehens has played with some of the best AD carries in the world, specifically Viper, and I think that this combination of players is going to it's going to reiterate, well, maybe not reiterate, it's not the right word. It's going to bring Lehens back to the forefront, and when we think of like really good playmaking supports, because they've been bouncing around a little bit the past couple of years. They did still play with Viper and Lehens when Griffin was struggling, and then when that team eventually was like rebranded into Hanwha Life, I'm pretty sure, and then they weren't able to perform as well, but I consistently bet on them because I believe in talent first and foremost, and I think that Ruler and Lehens will be one of the best bot lane duos in the world. Next up, we have Viper and Mako. They might be the best in the world. I think that Viper deserves a lot of the credit for that. When you start differentiating between players like Lehens and Mako, I don't think that there is much of a difference. I know that Mako is a huge name and is probably a bigger name than Lehens because of sustained success and the World Championship now. But I think that still Viper and Mako, one of the best in the LPL. And stylistically, I think you'll realize there are a lot of similarities between the players on this list. And it's because they play the harder style of League of Legends. Like, you can win a lot of games as a utility AD carry, where that's the only thing that you can do. But in order to be the best of the best, you have to be able to hard carry as well on immobile champions like Aphelios, Jinx, Kog'Maw, like those style of champions. And you need the entire team to be willing to play around you, meaning they believe in you to carry the game. And a lot of players, they just, we just can't believe in them. Next up, and this is more of an important one that I have high hopes for, it's Gumayusi and Keria. So at the World Championships, obviously Gumayusi played more than Teddy did, and T1 was still able to make a really good run. They had chances to beat Damwon in their series, and I think that my opinion of Keria being the best support in the world kind of necessitates this sort of ranking. And T1's a very balanced team, a very young team, and they should be very exciting to watch throughout the entire year. Keria's champion pool and their playstyle sometimes makes it seem like they have a ton of deaths that we don't necessarily love for DraftKings. But when you're thinking about it just purely from a League of Legends standpoint, I think that Keria's ceiling is the highest in the world in the support position. And then Gumayusi, there's a reason they let Teddy go. Going back and forth between Gumayusi and Teddy, I hate that kind of setup in general. I think it really takes away from the confidence of players because they don't even know if they have the own spot, the starting spot on their own team. Like, why should they believe in themselves to be one of the best players in the world? And maybe it doesn't get to that level sometimes, but Gumayusi and Keria, I think they're more on the important side of things than the best side of things. They have the opportunity to be one of the best bot lanes in the world because the talent from both players is immense. Then we have Juan, Fung, and Sword Art from Weibo Gaming. So before Sword Art left to go to TSM to kind of throw away a year for money, they were one of the best bot lanes in the world because Juan Fung is out of control and Sword Art was the glue that kind of held Suning together. So Suning has rebranded to Weibo Gaming. They have the Shy now, so it's basically the world's finalists that we had plus the Shy instead of Bin. I don't necessarily think that's an upgrade. I like Bin and I like the Shy very much. They are a little bit different. The Shy can definitely punish harder, but maybe Bin's a little bit more consistent, or maybe not. Maybe consistent isn't the right word, but doesn't completely run it down some games. And I'm not criticizing the Shy for that. Like I've said in the past, the Shy plays the way that League of Legends should be played in my mind. So no hate here. And then last but not least, we have Elk and Xiaozi. So Elk, formerly Jiaomeng, was amazing on World Elite, and like the Breathe, Beishang, Xie, Elk missing team, I think had all the talent to make an insane run at Worlds, but it just never kind of materialized. I don't think they even made it to Worlds in 2020, but that roster was so good. There was so much talent there, and I think that we're going to see these players all be successful in the new teams that they're on. So Xiaozi is a good hook player champion, hook champion player. So especially Thresh, a lot of the times you can't give a champion like Thresh to Xiaozi because of that. But I think that the roster is very interesting. ZS is a highly thought of player. Hacker's okay. Cryan was overrated, now probably underrated. And then you have Elk and Xiaozi, who are a very good bot lane. If they're able to outperform, their if Ultra Prime makes a run this year at all, it's going to be because of the bot lane. They're going to have to play around the bot lane and maybe sometimes through top lane. And then you're going to have Cryan going from side lane to side lane, creating additional pressure. So it's an interesting team setup, and you can kind of tell which teams have a lot of faith in their bot lane because of how they structure their team. And I do think that this team is basically built around Elk, Xiaozi, and probably ZS, and then Cryan's there to kind of hold it together from the mid lane. So those are the most important bot lanes, in my opinion, at least the ones that I'm paying the most attention to. So now let's go to the other duos. Let's go to top jungle. And again, we're going to start off with Evil Geniuses. I think that Inspired is most likely the best Western jungler in the world. The best Western jungler. I don't think that Impact is as good as some of the other top laners that are out here, but in order for Evil Geniuses to play to the level that I think they can, like I said before, you're going to have to get at least one more really good year out of Impact, because I do think that Inspired has had okay top laners in the past, but not the greatest top laners in the past. Like Odoamne was always a consistent force for Rogue when Inspired was there. Impact can kind of play that same role, and it's going to have to try to help facilitate Inspired carry from the jungle. I don't know. It doesn't. It's not like I'm saying that Impact is a weakness. It's just I'm really interested to see how well they can do compared to some of the other North American top lanes, which I think that they're just better than. But we'll have to see how that plays out. Next up, we have what is most likely the best the best Western top jungle duo is Alphari and Selfmade. I'm a big fan of Selfmade. I think that last year was kind of just an anomaly based on their team not being very good. I was hopeful that Vitality would have chances to be good, but the way that they had their roster set up, it just never turned into something cohesive. They swapped out 80 carries at one point, which makes it really difficult to have your jungler be that carry when everyone else isn't kind of doing their job. And then we have Alphari, who's one of the best Western top lane carries. It's inevitable that we're going to see a lot of really strong games out of Alphari and Selfmade, like constantly diving top lane and just creating insane advantages that the other team kind of can't recover from. And the only reason why that wouldn't happen is if the flexibility of Vitality should be one of their strengths. So there will be games that you really can't play around Alfari for draft reasons or like how the team talent matches up. But I'm excited to watch them play with one another. I think that the Vitality roster is pretty insane, and there are a lot of good Western teams this year that I'm excited to watch. They can fail, but it's at least very interesting. Next up in this, again, this is more of an interesting or a top jungle to watch out for. It's Birdall and Canyon. So Birdall is one of the best up-and-coming top laners in the world. I think that this year we're going to see not a changing of the guard, but we're going to see some players really break out and like shock people with how good they are. I know that the performance we saw at Worlds wasn't the best, but that's only the beginning. Like you're putting this person into a very difficult spot by having them get some of their first professional stage experience at World Championship. So I think that Canyon being the best jungler in the world, it's obvious that Birdall Canyon needs to be included in this kind of list, because if Birdall cannot play at this level, which would be shocking to me, if he can't play at an extremely high level, it's going to make Canyon look a little bit worse, and then we might be in a spot where everybody kind of starts to doubt Damwon. When in reality they look like they're poised to make another World Finals run. The next top jungle duo are Zeus and Owner. So I was watching the matchup between Damwon and T1 again, and I forgot how good Owner looked at points during the World Championship. I think that Owner, Faker, Gumayusi, Keria, I think it's an insane group of talented players. And then bringing in Zeus, this is more of like having faith in T1, because they don't generally make gigantic mistakes with the players they end up promoting to their main roster. And you have 4 players who are very young, and then you have Faker. So Faker, I think they're just trying to squeeze every ounce out of Faker's career that they can, and I think that it's smart because he's going to get a lot of the attention it gives, and he's going to get a lot of the pressure. It's going to make it easier for these other players to acclimate to the professional environment for when Faker inevitably leaves, and it allows them to cut costs. So I love Kana. I think that Kana is the best top laner in the world, but 90% of Kana for a fraction of the price is probably what T1 is trying to do, and I think that they might have that in Zeus because of my trust in the T1 organization. Following that up, we're going to go with the Shy and SFM. And the reason I think that this is so important is because the Shy has to make a comeback. Like, they just have to. I'd be shocked if Weibo doesn't play a decent amount around top lane, because SFM is a very good controlling jungler that will play to the strengths of their team, and I think any team that has someone like the Shy on it from this point on really needs to draft specifically for the Shy, and that's not necessarily a problem on a team like Weibo, because Angel can kind of play a role, play their role within the team, meaning there are certain champions that will fit into this identity of having a super strong bot lane that is going to try to take over during the late game, but during the early and mid game, we're going to play around top side, make sure that we get our solo laners a little bit ahead, or at least try to get them a little bit ahead, and then when that 15, 20, 25 minute mark comes, we're going to just try to blow them out of the water. And it's a good play style. I think it will make a lot of sense because Bin and the Shy are somewhat similar top laners. They're both very skilled top laners, and I'm excited to see what they can pull off. I really hope that the Shy returns to form, and it's winning games will just automatically make them look better, and I expect Weibo to be pretty good. I think that losing Sword Art was a much bigger problem than everybody anticipated, including myself. Then the next top jungle duo, we have Ale and Tarzan. So this has to do with the exposure that Ale got at Worlds. I think that he is probably overrated now in general by the public. I think that, the first broadcast that we get where LNG is playing, They're going to talk about how this is like a world championship contender, how like Ale is a new superstar in the top lane, and I think they're really just going to overplay how good he is. But I do think that LNG is like a legit world's contender. They just need to. I mean, that's just really the long and the short of it. I do think that they have a chance to win the world championship. Their play style is the only thing that would hold them back, because you have the hyper aggressive teams. I think it's just an easier style to play. So like stylistically, they could have some problems throughout the years, in particular when they're playing good teams in particular. But I would expect Ale to underperform to expectations. I think everyone's going to set kind of ridiculously high expectations for Ale. And maybe there's a buy low opportunity in the future. But when you have Tarzan and Doumbia on your team, maybe it's just going to be, a lot of good-looking performances, and then we have to bet against LNG at some point. And then last but not least, we have Bin and Wei on RNG. I think that going from, like, having Xiaohu in the top lane proved that RNG and Wei could play around the top lane. Now that Xiaohu's going back to the mid lane, one of two things will happen. Either RNG is going to turn into a mid-centric team where they still try to focus a lot of their attention to Xiaohu, or they're going to start playing with flexible laners, or, well, I guess three things, or they're going to continue playing a decent amount around topside and have Wei and Bin cause a lot of problems in top lane. And there's a decent number of LPL top laners that I think can be exploited because they're either inexperienced or just not very good. And it's an interesting thing that RNG did picking up Bin. I think that they just went after a talented player, which is obviously an extremely talented player, and they're just going to try to make it work. Worst case scenario, you find some random control mage mid laner and put Xiaohu back top and just, try to run back what you did last year. I think in reality, what's really going to hold back RNG in the future is potentially Gala. And I know that might not be a popular opinion, but that's just my gut says that that's the direction the team may go into, where it ends up being a problem. All right. Next up, let's talk about jungle mids. So again, we're going to start with EG. The reason why this is important is because no one knows really what Jojo Pyun is going to look like on the LCS stage, and that's why their odds to win lock-in are sort of low. The only thing that would make me not bet on EG to win the lock-in tournament would be Inspired not playing. And even in that scenario, I think that there are outs where like Jojo Pyun ends up being at least league average, and then they let Danny carry the entire thing. I'm just, maybe I'm too high on EG at this point and like Danny and everything, but I'm just hopeful that we're seeing the creation of like a legitimate North American team that has world's aspirations. And I know it sounds like a lot, considering we haven't seen incredible performances out of Danny, for a long time. But the heights that we've seen, I think, kind of justify that level of hype. But let's move on. Then we have Vitality. Selfmade and Perks should be one of the best jungle mid duos in Europe. I think that if I had to bet money on it, I would just say that they are the best jungle mid duo. I know that Perks didn't have a great year last year, but at Worlds we saw him kind of turn it on, get back to the next level, and was very, in my opinion, very good at Worlds, just in general, but especially when you think about what everyone was saying about Perks at the time, because public sentiment was lower and lower. C9 just had a tough year in general, so we'll see how they bounce back. The next team, Gen G, we have Peanut and Chovi. I love Peanut. I think that Peanut is one of the most fun junglers to watch for people who like love League of Legends, because it's a different kind of style. When he's dominating the game, he's not necessarily going out and getting 7, 8, 9 kills a lot of the time, and which he does often. A lot of the times it's like, okay, we're 25 minutes into the game, it's 3-0, Peanut's 2-0-1, and somehow he's like 2 levels up and is completely controlling the entire map. Those are the kinds of performances that really prove mastery of another level. Not every jungler can do that, and yes, it does take some team coordination and stuff like that as well. But for the most part, you kind of need to give Peanut the credit for that, especially when you think about how they played on a team like LGD when he kind of carried them to Worlds. That's the level that Peanut can reach, and I'm excited to see what they do on a legit roster again, because I do think that they are better than Clid, so I think it's an upgrade. Next up, we have Canyon and Showmaker. This one's obvious. I don't need to spend much time talking about this. You have the best jungler in the world, and you have one of the best mid laners in the world, one of the 2 best mid laners in the world. So they obviously have to be at the top of this. I expect them to do the same thing, and I could easily see them making another run at Worlds. There's not really much else to say. I think that I'll just leave it there. Then we have T1, so Owner and Faker. This is more of an interesting dynamic to me because Faker does take on so much pressure from the enemy team. Like when I was watching back the match between Damwon Gaming, they would consistently try to put Faker behind because the hope is that they don't have a big influence later on in the game, but he always manages to be influential. Like obviously if it's a stomp, he's not going to be able to do anything. But that's really the next level of T1. You need Faker and Wunner to be able to compete with Canyon and Showmaker. And in the Worlds matchup, it did look somewhat significantly Damwon favored. So we'll see. It'd be kind of upsetting if T1 was just like completely dominated by Damwon for another year. But it's a very possible situation. All right, next up we have LNG, Tarzan, and Duembi. So Tarzan, one of the best junglers in the world. I've been saying that since he went to the LPL. And then we have Duembi, who is one of the most interesting players to watch in League of Legends, just because he doesn't necessarily play a lot of the hard carry champions, but he'll take what's sort of the equivalent of a utility AD carry. He'll take team fighting champions or team first champions and just blow up the entire game with ridiculous engages, having really good pocket picks like the Kled, and just having a gigantic influence all over the map. Just a really fun player to watch and to root for. Next up, we have Top Esports. So Top Esports, this one is like a question mark for me because I don't know if I know that Tian has the better pedigree, but I could see it getting into a spot where Xiaopeng is actually the starting jungler. So this is more of a lane to watch, or a duo to watch out for, because we don't know how it's going to turn out. If Tian struggles like they did last year, I think that Top Esports is going to have a very short leash because they need to be at Worlds next year. They need to be competing on that level. Going from Karsa Tian is probably basically a side grade, but for team chemistry purposes and that sort of thing, it does concern me a little bit. So it's just a duo that we need to watch out for, because if it goes the right way, they'll be an extremely good team. But I don't know. I know that Jackie Love is a great AD carry relative to all the other professionals, but there's still question marks around their bot lane in general. I don't think that you're going to get many hard carry performances out of Zoom. So it's really going to boil down to can Tian and Knight carry Top Esports. And it's definitely possible, but it's a little scary as well. I think they have a much wider range of outcomes than we would think for Top Esports coming into the year. Then we have Wei and Xiaohu, and we know that they work very well as a combination, but we're not sure what it's going to look like back with Xiaohu in the mid lane. I forget if Wei played with Xiaohu in the mid lane for a little bit in 2020, but this might be the first time that they're together in the jungle mid combo. And I think that Xiaohu is definitely a world-class player. Wei has the potential to be a world-class player, but it's not as convincing as some of the other junglers that we talked about so far. And then this is kind of like a hopeful pick for me. Piosik and Zika, I want them to be successful. I don't know if they necessarily will be successful, but they are two very good, exciting young players. In 2020, they looked like the kinds of players that would take that next step in 2021 and be elite, but for different reasons, it just didn't happen. Piosik was on a bad team because DRX let like 4 very good players leave their organization, and then Zika, was on BLG. They had some good performances, but it's really tough competing against the elite competition in the LPL. But we still love Zika. And then last but not least, we have Karsa and Rookie. I think that this is something that we should watch out for, because if Rookie is as good as everyone thinks that he is, then Karsa and Rookie will be a better jungle mid duo than Tian and Knight. The reason why I think that I have like they're called Ninjas in Pajamas now, but it was like the V5 organization before. The reason why I don't have their team higher is because I don't think I like Rich in the LPL. I don't think that Fodik is very good, and PP God is a good player, but not a great player. So I think that even though the jungle mid duo might be better out of Karsa and Rookie than Tian and Knight, I think that the supporting cast is just better for top esports. So I would expect them to perform better. And then last but not least, we have jungle and support. So the jungle and support duos that I want to watch out for. First, we're going to go into the LEC. I think that a few people pointed this out in one of my previous videos about Marcoon and Advien being big difference makers for the organization when they subbed in, I think, during the summer split. And it's true. Like, they did come in and kind of change the complexion of the team. And it's the kind of move that, in general, I applaud and kind of call for, where you didn't take, a recycled player from a different organization that's been around for a couple of years, slap them into your roster, know that the public's going to be okay with it, and move on and just, like, lose games. They were trying to build something. So having 2 new players come in, new blood, is a good thing. And they did perform well. I know that people were saying Marcoon deserved, like, to be the rookie of the split and things like that, but it's a lot of the time it's difficult to see the impact of a jungle and support on a team, but it's kind of undoubtable in their case. They created a lot of the winning chances for XL last year, and maybe they're able to play around this roster with ignore Nuke Duck, play around Finn, and then transition into Patrick. Maybe that works. I don't have high hopes for them, but it's very interesting. Next up, we have DRX, and this will be very fun to watch because, again, I think that Piosik is one of the best junglers in the world, and is just underappreciated right now. And I think that the same is kind of true for Beryl. And it's not that people think that Beryl is bad, but I don't think that people realize how good Beryl is because he was playing with Ghost, and I don't really think that Ghost is a world-class AD carry, and apparently neither does Damwon, because they went and they got a new AD carry for the upcoming season. Like, that's the kind of thing that I love, is when like an elite organization makes a player move that is surprising to most people because they are like, oh, well, this player's on a good team, they must be amazing. When I think that they realized that they could upgrade the roster to keep Showmaker and Canyon happy, and I think that they accomplished that with getting Diakdom. Let's move on. In the LEC, we have Elyoya and Kaiser. So I do talk about Elyoya being overrated a decent amount, but I think that for the way that this team is set up, in order for Mad Lions to be successful by like any measure, Elyoya and Kaiser will have to kind of take over the pacing of the early and mid game, look for opportunities to get like team play started around Dragon, Rift Herald, gank mid lane, and do that kind of stuff, because Carzy created a lot of artificial pressure on the map, and was able to solo by himself. So I think that's a skill that Unforgiven is going to need to kind of prove that he has. And then Humanoid, I know I kind of shit talk him a little bit, but it's because everybody talks so highly of him, and I just don't think he's that level of player. But he's probably better than Reeker, right? So there will be a lot of additional pressure on Elyoya and Kaiser to manage and to navigate the early and mid game. And then on not G2. We're not talking about G2. We're talking about Rogue. So for Rogue, Malrong and Trimby, I think that, again, Trimby is another player where like people from the LEC want to talk about him as if he's some kind of world-class support sometimes, which I don't think is true. But he is a playmaker, and it'll be necessary for Malrong and Trimby to have good synergy in order for Rogue to not skip a beat. And I think that it's possible. I think a lot of people want Malrong to be very good. And it's a huge question mark and is a noteworthy jungle support duo, so I felt like I had to include them here. Next up, we have SFM and Sword Art. And this is one where it is going to either confirm my belief that they are both very good players, not the like elite players, but very good and able to help the core of the team, which is the Shy and Juan Fung, and getting the rest of the team into spots to carry the game. Because like if you put Juan Fung in an even position or even a slightly losing position, and the game comes down to like mechanical ability and winning one team fight, I believe in Juan Fung to kind of accomplish that. Moving on, T1, Owner and Keria. So Keria, I think, is the best support in the world, and Owner showed glimpses of being an elite jungler at Worlds, but wasn't like dominant against good competition, which is really what you want to see. And that's a tough ask, but you know, when you're the jungler for T1, that's kind of the measuring stick, is like, can you be the best in the world? And I think that it's possible, but their combination during the early and mid game is going to be very important for T1. Obviously, it's very important for every team, but for a team like T1 who has a young roster, the thing that a jungle support duo can do is make the easy and mid game easier to navigate, which puts you in a position that you're kind of drafting around. So in order to keep things like on time for a team, you need your support and jungler to be very good and synergize well. And then last but not least, obviously we have Evil Geniuses again. I think that Inspired and Vulcan are instantly the best jungle support duo in the LCS, and it's very possible that they're the best jungle support in the West. I think that the only way that this isn't true is if Vulcan is not as good as people give him credit for, and Inspired's not as good as people give him credit for. But I don't think that's the case for either one of them, so I have high hopes for Evil Geniuses, obviously. And I know that you might think to yourself, hey, Michael, why'd you include all of these duos for Evil Geniuses? It's because I believe in the talent of all these players, but in order for that talent to really show through, these synergies need to line up and work well too. I think that it would be very sad if it doesn't work out, and this is one of the reasons that it might not work out, is because you need all of these combinations to work, and we haven't seen any of them. We've never seen Impact play with Inspired or Jojo Pyun or Vulcan. So having 3 new players on the team, while the talent is extremely good, you need the team to mesh, and it needs to fit. And you know, that's the big question mark that we have for the LCS. But that's all I've got for you today. A longer video. I didn't want to do bot and support individually, and I figured that all these duos are kind of, you know, important things to talk about. So if you feel like I missed out on like 2 players from a team that are very important and like their synergy is going to make or break their team for the year, feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.